turn doubters into believers. The Jurgen Klopp way, unadulterated love and loyalty, something that you can only really feel to a father figure, in which Jurgen Klopp became one to many Liverpool fans in the last near decade. When I first heard the news, I thought that they were having me on. I truly didn't believe that Jurgen Klopp would be leaving Liverpool. However, with time it does make sense. Jurgen Klopp, despite of course being pragmatic in his approach of not only rebuilding one but two great Liverpool sides, and a second side is yet to really achieve their full potential, but the signs are truly there that it can be another great side to last for the next 2 to 3 years. Jurgen Klopp runs on energy, on passion, on full concentration to the most perfect craft that is necessary to compete in the Premier League and in the Champions League at this level. When you are against someone who is equally as great as Pep Guardiola, you've got to be perfect. Hence why when you watch Mikel Arteta, he's always on edge. He's always, as what some people may say, too passionate, too energetic, that it almost becomes kind of comedic. Jurgen Klopp has been fully engulfed by the Liverpool fans, by the Liverpool project for nearly 8 years now, and that does take its toll. The expectation to be perfect takes its toll, and it clearly has on Jurgen Klopp, to no one's surprise. After speaking to many Liverpool fans that I'm friends with, they all seem to have the same feeling that this is potentially the lowest moment of their lives. And maybe that is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it is quite fairly and equally represented that this is more than just a manager leaving a club. The only examples I can think of that is a similar feeling is Sir Alex at Manchester United, but you always felt like it was inevitable. He was at the club for 2 decades. Of course he was going to make a move. Same thing with Arsene Wenger at Arsenal. Again, truly emotional, but it kind of felt like the end of an era had to come at some stage. The only gripe that I have, even as a neutral in terms of this debate, is that you always feel like with Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, they should have been much more. If it was only 2 years ago when they were on course for a quadruple that fell off near the end of the season, winning a Premier League at last, however doing it in COVID conditions without the fans in the stadium, everything felt off. And despite of course being some great memories, some great nights, Barcelona home, beating Spurs in Champions League final in Madrid, of course cup final wins at Wembley, of course they've had their great moments, but Klopp, in my opinion, deserves more than just that. I do understand that people don't like Klopp at all, and people see him as too much of a complainer. He whines all the time, and he always seems angry. He sometimes says some things to journalists that comes across a bit harsh, and I get that completely. But I do also think that comes with the territory of having to be perfect every single day for years, as that is what is demanded. And also at the same time, that kind of cult figure, that cult hero that feels like they really represent the club. Of course, any fan of Liverpool would absolutely adore Jurgen Klopp, and of course if you are a fan of a club that is not involved in Liverpool, and even more so a rival of United or Everton, of course you're probably not going to like him a bit. Of course you're probably not going to like him, but Klopp and Liverpool was a perfect fit. At his very first day at Liverpool, he went to Millwood, and at his first introduction to his squad, he wrote on the wall "terrible" in block capitals, explaining to his squad his vision of how he wanted his team to play, explaining that this is how teams would feel after playing against his Liverpool. This would be achieved by running further and quicker, and by pressing straight away when possession is lost. From there, Liverpool would hit opponents on the counter-attack. Of course, this isn't to completely disregard his great achievements at Dortmund and even at Mainz, but this is more specifically about Liverpool here. And don't forget, they started really well, with Coutinho being the main figurehead, with some great wins away at Chelsea and also Manchester City in the first 6 weeks. Klopp's debut season at Liverpool ended in Basel in a Europa League final, a feat that many Liverpool fans couldn't even imagine 12 months prior. Don't forget how the Steven Gerrard era ended, with a 6-1 thrashing away at Stoke and even losing at home to Crystal Palace on Steven Gerrard's final game. The tide was turning under Brendan Rodgers, so to imagine him being in a Europa League final only a year or so later was remarkable. And despite losing that game 3-1, Liverpool fans didn't care too much. For one reason, their manager was Jurgen Klopp. They knew that this was only the beginning. I'm not a Liverpool fan, but I can admit that out of the top 6 clubs, I do prefer Liverpool the most. You can thank Fernando Torres for that mainly though. Also, don't forget, the main key element of Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool is the fans. The greatest example, Klopp wanted Liverpool supporters to trust the team again, as prior to that, they felt a bit disenchanted with what they were seeing, and the theory of the 12th man would truly mean something at Liverpool. In November 2015, Crystal Palace took the lead with 8 minutes to go, and in his press match interview, Jurgen Klopp said, "I felt pretty alone." That's why only a month later, with a 2-2 draw at home to West Bromwich Albion, at the end of the game, he went straight to the Kop, hand in hand with his team, to celebrate with them. Liverpool came back from behind and equalised late on in the game, and the crowd stuck with the team. This image is always something that stuck with me, that people always mocked, calling it Tin Pot, calling it a laughingstock. Why would you celebrate a 2-2 draw home to West Brom, a mid-table side back then? But you've got to remember one thing. It doesn't actually matter your thoughts on this, unless if you are a Liverpool fan, because to them, it felt like their team was together. And only a few months later came a famous night, and possibly one of the most important, that really upped the ante and gave Klopp and Liverpool the belief to keep going forward. Liverpool were 3-1 down with 25 minutes remaining, and a Dejan Lovren header from a corner brought it back to win 5-4 on aggregate. Klopp quartered, the Kop created the best half an hour I've ever had in football. The entire stadium belting a chant, "We are Liverpool." Don't forget also the squad that he first brought in. Of course, some great top quality players, such as the likes of Felipe Coutinho and Adam Lallana, but there were some players there that you felt like was never really ready for the next step and would have to start making a move later on. And the most important part of a Klopp Liverpool team was discipline. That is why so many of these players had to make way, and in the summer of 16-17, he brought in the likes of Sadio Mane, Joe Matip and Jorginho Wijnaldum, players that became an important next step for the Klopp era. And of course, I almost forgot, I do apologise, but also of course Roberto Firmino. And even though he had some great moments during this time period, he needed support, as it was kind of too much focused around being a Felipe Coutinho and the other guys. He was the star of the show. However, Sadio Mane came in, and this proved to be by far the most important transfer in a long time. Speaking of transfers, you do also need to remember exactly how Liverpool were able to bring in players and how they were able to go about their business. Liverpool had to be a bit more smarter in their business and can really only spend a bit more, but within what they also bring in. When you talk about Liverpool and their transfer dealings and how much they probably don't spend compared to the competitors, they always seem to throw out, "Oh well, they spent 140 million on Van Dijk and Alisson, so of course they spent tons of money." However, people always like to forget how much Felipe Coutinho sold to Barcelona, which was also just over 140 million. Klopp always said in his quote, "I want to do it differently, and even made some remarks regarding Manchester United and Man City in terms of their extravagant spending. FSG, of course, has been critiqued quite a few times and by no means are perfect. The title for some Liverpool fans may be a bit tainted just for the fact that it was during COVID, which of course doesn't take away the achievement, but does take away the satisfaction of really appreciating that moment, being in the stands with your friends, with your family, watching your heroes lift a title. That was stolen from Liverpool fans. Ever since then, they've been chasing that feeling with, of course, remarkable title fights yet again against Man City, and sadly just missing out right at the end, most prominently back in 21-22, going down to the final day and Aston Villa being 2-0 up at the Etihad to then have Man City come back from behind against, by the way, Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa. I mean, that did hurt. Don't forget that year they were also on for the quadruple in the FA Cup final and in the Champions League final. Liverpool did win the FA Cup, beating Chelsea on penalties, but did lose to Real Madrid in Paris. Despite what felt like a bit of a flat ending, it does really show how far Liverpool have really come, turning doubters into believers. Of course, this is not the same Liverpool team. Many players have gone, many have stayed, but Klopp has been building the new era with some great young talent that still you can really imagine the potential coming in the next few years. Of course, there's some young talent that's already within the club, such as Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott, like Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo, Dominic Szoboszlai coming through the window, Van Dijk back to his very best, the Egyptian king maintaining his greatness, and the Scouse king, Trent Alexander-Arnold, ready to move Liverpool into the new era. Liverpool 2.0 is back, currently top of Premier League in an EFL Cup final, in the FA Cup and Europa League, and this is it, the last dance. And for someone that is not, again, a Liverpool fan, I will be very sad to see him go at the end of this year. And I would like to see Jurgen Klopp, hopefully, win the Premier League this year. Of course, if you are a rival fan, of course, you don't want to see this. But as a neutral, I want to see great stories. I want to see some fantastic moments. Moments that I don't think will be ever forgotten in the lifetimes of fans. And what Liverpool have gone through is truly not a once in a lifetime for a club the size of Liverpool, but definitely one in a few generations. It was truly remarkable watching Liverpool go in the manner they have, with a manager which truly embodied what it was like to be Liverpool, being a bit of an outcast but loved by his very own, being disliked by many, by being a bit misunderstood, maybe being a bit aggressive, maybe being a bit too forward. However, that was the man that he was. I hope you guys did enjoy. Tell me your thoughts about Klopp. Tell me your thoughts about the impact that he made at Liverpool. And I mean, I don't even want to think about the next man who would replace him. I don't really care right now. But one thing I absolutely do know is that the Premier League will be worse off with him gone. So, there you have it. Thanks for watching.